It's Chris, host of The Heart of the Story. Welcome to the show.
Seth Marks. Thanks for coming on our show today, Seth.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Awesome, man. Well, we're just getting to meet each other, so this is amazing. And you're based up in Utah, right?
Yes, sir.
How long
Great, beautiful state. Another beautiful desert state.
It is a beautiful desert state. How long you been there?
On and off for about 12 years. Uh, was here permanently for a few years, and then now just part-time, but love it. This is where I file taxes.
I love that. Yeah, I lived in Utah for almost 6 years, and my mom was born and raised there in the Salt Lake area. But now I call Arizona home, and I'm so happy here. I love Arizona.
I love it. I went to U of A in Tucson, which is like a time warp. It doesn't quite, it's growing, but everything seems like it never changes. You come where you are in that Scottsdale, Tempe, Mesa, Phoenix area, you miss a few years there and everything changes. It's amazing, the evolution of that market.
Oh, for sure. It's changing even more right now. Like the Mesa Gateway Airport literally is just blowing up. There's all these big tech companies, Facebook and Google and Amazon and Apple, and all of them are all building headquarters out there. And just like I moved here 3 years ago, that was all flat land, and now they've got, I don't know, a couple dozen big giant warehouse buildings up already. It's wild how fast they build.
Amazing. It's like on average, majority of the humans, based on the population density, when you take out Texas and California, I think it's a crazy number, like 65-70% live east of the Mississippi in this country. And I think majority of them are probably in 30-degree, 40-degree weather right now. What is the weather for Chris in Arizona today?
Probably about 70 degrees, I'd say. I think it's about 70.
And that's a cool day, right?
It's really cool. I mean, so during the winter, so obviously I've got family actually still lives up in Utah, and when they were having days where they were calling me saying, "Hey, it's a snowstorm," I'm looking outside and I'm like, 65. It's nice, clear sky. It's a good thing. We don't have any snow here. We're happy here.
Is that why you think all these big corporations are moving there to recruit people to that beautiful climate?
I think the weather's part of it for sure. Cost of living's not bad either. I would say the cost of it's cheaper here than Utah, and our university scene is really booming too. I mean, U of A and ASU, GCU. We've got a good university system here where they're pumping out a lot of kids. They're very talented, very smart, right? That very much helps, I'd say, as well. And then the fact that we've got some big industry, some big companies that are already here, right? That have been here for a while. That also plays a big part.
What's the income tax rate in Arizona?
I don't know that off the top of my head. 2%?
Yeah. That, by the way, to your earlier point, like the economics, the climate, like the demographics, everything, it's a very fertile state.
Oh yeah, no, very fertile state. Definitely has deep Mormon roots, so it's got that planted here as well in the East Valley. Wherever you find deep Mormon roots, you find a lot of big families with good wealth, right? That kind of help create a nice foundation from the beginning, which also kind of plays a root. But it's also spread from there, over the years. So yeah, it's good. But tell me more about you, man. Where were you actually born and raised? Let's start from the early years. Where were you born and raised and bred? And
was really lucky. Had great parents still around, and I think parenting is so critical for the development of our obviously our country, quite frankly, right? We want to point fingers at teachers, but I think it starts in the home. So I was so blessed to have two great parents that poured their heart out, and really supportive parents. And that was in the suburbs of Chicago. And that's where I grew up. I'm a Chicago guy through and through, but paid my dues. And once we became in that for that old man winter, just kicked our ass every year. I mean, it's so brutal. The Chicago winters really, and the older you get, the less pain tolerance you have for that stuff. So once my kids all left the nest, my wife and I moved out to Park City part-time. We're in New York, and we travel a ton as empty nesters. So it's been awesome. But that's the longest answer, Chris, to tell you, where I grew up, the Chicagoland. But now I'm a free man.
Is that where you met your wife? Was Chicago?
Yes, she actually grew up in the city, right in the heart of it, and that's where we raised our kids, in the city. And I met her on a blind date in Chicago, 1995.
Blind date in Chicago. That's amazing. That's a story. And then all your kids, you guys raised them out in Chicago. And then how long have you been in Park City?
Again, we were here full time for a few years. I came out as an executive to help out a company based here, great digital, very early in the off-price digital game. Really was at one point dominant. One of the first ones to be profitable, founded by an unbelievable visionary guy named Dr. Patrick Byrne, who Overstock.com, first retailer I think on the planet, for sure in North America, to accept Bitcoin for a consumer transaction. He offered to pay me in Bitcoin. He bought $10 million of it in 2012-ish, and offered to pay me in it. And I said, I'd rather get paid in sofas and love seats and couches. I didn't understand the magnitude of what Bitcoin could be, but I knew I could always monetize a couch. Chris, I'm a liquidator at heart. I monetize everything and anything at speed. That's the name of the off-price game. So that's what we did digitally at Overstock. That's what brought me out to Utah. Once I saw the first of all, how it makes you feel, as you know, how do you actually feel? My wife, I always say to my wife before we even talk, like how do we feel when we're here? Like, let's feel it. And when you process those feelings and block out the noise, the answers to the test are always right there for you. So the vibe, great vibe in Utah, and just this Mother Nature's, coming from the concrete jungle of Chicago to where it's just all Mother Nature. It was just scenic overload. Our souls were getting fed. Our blood pressure went down. And so even though I left Overstock.com, my wife opened a boutique in Park City. She has a showroom. She's a designer and a caviar proprietor. She sells stuff out of her store here. So we're here a ton, love it. But that's it. I hope, Chris, been a great show. Have a great
No, you're good, dude. You're good. So how did you get into Overstock though? Like what's your background with the career stuff? Like I'd love to dive in more, like the story of Seth Marks. I mean, obviously, like the world knows of your wife from the show world, but I would love to know more about the story of Seth Marks.
Appreciate that.
What's your background in, like, post graduating from U of A?
I got really lucky. I had a grandfather who was an immigrant who started a business in his teens, and that business became a closeout wholesale, like just go to one side of town. Before this was in the 1930s. You're buying excess inventory, you're finding opportunities. If you're on the street, and back in the days, you literally had to physically be sniffing around the street all day. If you're a hustler, and you have no money, and you just got to this country, which a lot of people in that Eastern European immigration generation through Ellis Island, they just went and hustled. My grandpa was one of them, and he was bought things and tried to sell it for more. Business grew. He had 3 kids. They all went into it. We became the biggest closeout wholesaler in America. And so we sold to all the off-price retailers. The benefit of the third generation, having a little bit of that luck, and in growing up, blessed like that, is they get educated. It's all about educate. And I believe in education, but I believe in experience more. Right? I saw my grandpa and my dad dominating an industry, and I just wanted to immerse myself in what they were doing. They never missed a Michael Jordan playoff game. Great season tickets to every CO. Just that business afforded an incredible upbringing for me, and I recognize that. So brothers that went to really fancy schools, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to. I knew I was going to Arizona my freshman year in high school. All I had to do was stay alive to get in. So, actually, sorry, that's ASU. We actually have to have a heartbeat at U of A. Sorry, Chris. So, so I knew what I was going to do. I worked in the swap meets and the flea markets in college, buying and selling stuff. And when I left, I went into the family business. And what happens, Chris, every third generation businesses are very high risk. You got the first generation really hustling, literally dying on the job. Second generation seeing their dad or, uncle, how they work 7 days a week, 100 hours a week. That's what you got to do, man. So my grandpa was one of those guys. My dad and his brothers are one of those guys. And the third generation comes in. There's no limit to how many there are, and now there's too many chiefs, too many cooks in the kitchen, and a lot of trouble. I left the business, joined a big liquidation firm called Hilco Global, which is one of the biggest liquidation firms in the world. You would know them like with Toys R Us. Anytime you see going out of business, it's a handful of really incredible liquidation firms. There are a lot of former restructuring attorneys and merchants like me and analysts. And so I went into that industry because third generation wasn't for me, and just have stayed in it. I've stayed in it, and I've been, I found my way to the other side of the table, operating retail business, off-price retailers, because the most important thing for off-price retail, Chris, and this is why Big Lots went out of business, which I tried to get. I got there too late, and it haunts me because I've been there twice in my career. Once when it was an incredible success, the best closeout retailer in America. And then when they got out of off-price, several CEOs later from the founding vision, and they want to just plan ahead and go to China and import and just, make sure you can do everything 9 months out, and they lose that ability to be agile and pounce on opportunities. Imagine if you were in the real estate business and you were waiting for things 9 months out, right? You got to have your head on a swivel, and you got to have your nose on the wire, and you got to hustle like you just got here from Ellis Island in any industry you're in. And I happen to be literally in that kind of industry. And unfortunately, Big Lots lost their way and just started getting full price retail products and lost, so I got recruited. I've been in this industry, been just going to places that lost their way, try to bring them back to their way, all off price. And when I'm not doing that on the retail side, I'm actually feeding them, which is the most important thing in off price, is the inventory. That is the fuel, that surprise and delight treasure hunt inventory that gets mom and dad excited because they're going to save money on quality products that they would have had to pay a hell of a lot more for if they didn't shop in those off-price places. And Big Lots got out of that. We were trying to get them back in it, but the hole of debt was just way too deep, and we didn't have enough time. But it's great to be on the show, Chris.
No, dude, I'm loving your history. I'm loving your story. It's like, why'd you choose? So what's the thesis that drove you to go towards like off-price retail from the family transition you did? I mean, you could have gone into any, spect of retail or even completely gone out of retail. Why'd you choose to go to market retail? Like, what drove you there?
It's a great question, and initially I just saw it as a way to make a good living. But as it's evolved, I've built a passion, which could, I think what's a great lesson is if you just keep your mind open, and have no judgment, not just like every single day remove judgment. And uh, my mind has been so open that I just want to be the best. I thought, that's what my grandpa did, that's what my dad did, afforded them a great life. But once I learned it, it's like, what, I want to be the best. Why waste it? Why waste? Like, you don't want to meddle in the mire, in that mediocrity. Like that's where I think therapists make a lot of money working with people that kind of have a defeatist, like are just complacent, don't want to break out of the comfort zone. And I'm challenging myself every day. So I've been around a lot. If you looked at my LinkedIn, Chris, you'd think I was an 85-year-old guy. I do 2 to 3 year gigs, and unless there's like a whole nother level to take it, my work is usually done in that time frame. So because also you're sprinting so hard every day, you
Yeah,
kind of need to refuel, take a little break every so often. But
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, so I've been absolutely loving your story with this. I mean, I get it, bouncing from job to job to job every 2 3 years, because in tech, that's how tech is too. That's how tech is too. Like in
yeah,
tech,
it's like a
how
sport.
things last.
I consider it like coaching. You look at some of these coaches, 2 year jobs, 3 year jobs, and you just keep trying to get a little, and you just try to make your W-2. If you subscribe to the game that the majority of the game is played by increasing your W-2 every year, if that's going to be your number one decision point, like 51% of your decisions going to be based on
Yeah,
if I can materially change my net income every year, right? Like if I could make another few $100,000 every year, that starts adding up. It's incredible, right? Like athletes. So that's the game, But the other four, and that's not for everyone. Some people don't want to. Some people want to just lock in at places and be there for 30 years. It's the entrepreneurial spirit is not for everyone.
no, it's
And
not
that's
for.
okay as long as, like you said, as long as they're authentic with it, right? That's okay.
Yeah,
It's it's all about. I love your commitment to authenticity, because that to me is like the it's a pandemic, like it's an epidemic, whatever you want to call it. It's a problem, in this country. Um, there's so many artificial people that it is not, and I don't think that it's always. I think they don't even know it. A lot of people don't have the self awareness. They're just going with the herd and not becoming their true self. Which there's no true self if you're not authentic, Chris, as you know. So I
100%.
love what you guys stand for, and I appreciate you guys having me on here, because I think if people were more authentic, we could be a lot easier to solve problems.
Oh, 100%, dude. I mean, let's vibe on that highest frequency, right? We're all about, like in real estate, we always talk about assets. Well, what's the most important asset? This human body that we have, right? Like, how do we align all 7% centers of the human body and vibe on the highest energy, right? Like, let's get to authenticity. Let's get to enlightenment, right? Let's
Yeah,
get.
nothing works without it. Nothing works without authenticity. It's like it's like watering a silk artificial plant and expecting it to grow.
Exactly. And like, let's spread love with each other, not judgment, not criticism, not walls up. Let's just connect with each other. But, you know, in today's world, everyone has to fit things within a box. You know, everything has to get conformed. That's okay though.
Well, that's the unfortunate, the societal, uh, consensus of people, getting caught in living to the expectations of others, and um, which is a huge, challenge. And I think great parenting at the end. In the end, like religious teachings, there's too many different varying philosophies. Like but the fundamentals in the great religions. And I just look at religions like NFL teams. We're a speck of sand in the universe, as you know, Chris. So, like that, we're like this is the Earth. This is the way the game's played on Earth. This little speck called Earth. And you could either be born in a religion, you could choose a religion, you could recruit someone into your religion. To me, that's sports. But the universal energy that governs these humans, if we can just align on the fundamentals, like in you know,
Yes.
and get the game of real estate taken care of, who's got what, like let's compromise. There's never be one human life should never be lost over religion, ever. It
100%.
defies the entire purpose of religion if people are dying because of religion.
100%.
It devalues religion when that happens. It discredits it, all of them.
100%. I mean, I know we're short on time. I'll ask one little lasting comment from me, and then I've got a final question I was asked guys, but lasting from for me to follow with what you were just saying is I have a firm belief. Now here's the thing. I've stayed active in the LDS church. But with that being said, I believe that religion fundamentally was built to divide. It is something that's kind of
Built, sorry?
I believe that religion was built to divide. Even though I've stayed active in my church, I believe that fundamentally religion by its construct is built to divide mankind. Gospel is truth, and gospel is built to unite mankind. And that is the purity that comes from the Creator. We are all built by the Creator in the image of the Creator to become creators. But religion is this man-made construct that was built to then divide people and muddy gospel or truth. And I've been able, and it's an interesting dichotomy of staying in my church. Right, I've stayed in my church, but at the same time, it's like I look at religion by the construct of where it's at, and it's like it's built to divide. But it's like, wait a second, but your religion and your religion and your religion, you guys are all talking very similar things. Why are you so divided? Like very weird.
Yeah. I'm super reformed because I just say, hey, I'm Jewish, born Jewish, acknowledge, super proud of it. But JC was definitely the greatest Jew, probably.
Yeah.
I stay out of it. I stay out of that, and I stay out of politics because of the divisiveness. And to your point, the gospel unity and community that we need with authenticity throughout, so we can all help each other. Some days I need help, some days you need help, and I think this divide on our earth it's so troubling that it's almost impossible to process.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, Chris, it's been like that whole Ram Dass. I don't know if you've followed his incredible spiritual philosopher that changed careers. It was like, in corporate, it was in the academic world as a professor or something. And he just changed his name to Ram, went and studied and lost his mind into a lot of things you're alluding to and we're scratching on Ram Dass. And it just became about be here now, period.
Present.
And if that's it. That is it. Be the best person you can be right now. Forget yesterday unless you can learn from it or it makes you feel good. Those are the only two ways you ever look back. And then lean forward a little bit, but definitely not back, and be here now. And this was an incredible 30 minutes, Chris. I love the spirituality of it.
Yeah.
And your
highlight
agnostic inclusivity here, right?
Yeah, it's all about love at the end of the day. We need to be looking less to divide and more to unite and share love with each other, because we need to love each other and accept everybody for where they're at in life. Lasting question we always ask everybody, and I'll ask this, and then thank you so much for your time, is we ask everyone to highlight something that matters to them, person, place, thing, idea, whatever. What's something you want to highlight?
I think the thing I would highlight is kind of what we were just saying. Like the thing that just that we definitely need to take time to meet people like we just met today and create positive energy and human connection and try to lift each other up. And if you don't have things that are constructive that can help, don't say it. It's like just be more mindful. So just everybody being more emotionally aware. Like for me, that's my whole thing, and that comes down to authenticity, you know. And
Yeah.
so that I'm obsessed. Dan, Chris, I had a mentor not that much older than me, pass away at a young age last year, and his whole thing was win the day, win the day. It's a blessing and a privilege each day, and let's try to win it. And you lose it. Every day is lost if you have any ounce of hate. If you're vibing with hate and resentment and all kinds of negative emotions, you've lost the day.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. Let's definitely stay in touch, and hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, brother. This was an enriching conversation. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.